You want to see numbers like this on your Arcane Mage?
Make your way across this quarry on your own.
Let's get into the guide. Hey guys, I'm Heated, I'm an experienced mage player, and today I'm gonna show you how to play Arcane Mage in Midnight Season 1. This guide starts with the basics and gets more complex the longer the video goes on. So if you already know the basics, feel free to use the timetable below to switch to the part that you are interested in. First, let's talk basics. Arcane Mage is a cooldown dependent spec. Your main cooldown is Arcane Surge. This does decent damage upon casting, but what is more important, for the next 15 seconds after you casted Surge, your mana regeneration is increased by 425% and your spell damage is increased by 35%. Your second cooldown is Touch of the Magi. This is a 45 seconds cooldown, so as you can see, this lines up pretty well. Between every big cooldown, you can always press this small cooldown once. So 1 minute 30, 45, 1 minute 30. After you cast Touch of the Magi, 20% of the damage you do to the target gets accumulated over 12 seconds and then explodes at the end. Next, what we have to talk about is arcane charges. Below your character frame, you should see 4 little circles that should be empty. Arcane Blast is your single target builder. Arcane Pulse is your AoE builder. Barrage is how you get rid of your arcane charges. Clear Casting makes your next arcane missiles or arcane explosion cost no mana. Here you can see how that looks like. Whenever you get a Clear Casting proc, you can see this by having the buff Clear Casting or by looking at the aura around your character. As you will see later on in the talent section, this will also apply to any orb that we cast at the enemies. And Arcane Orb is another ability that lets you build charges. Here you can see how that works. You start with 0 charges. When you start casting Arcane Blast, you generate arcane charges. You can also use Pulse or Orb to generate charges, and whenever you cast Barrage, you empty those charges. The only thing you need to know is that the more arcane charges you have, the more mana cost some of your spells have, but the more damage they do. Ooh, talents. In this part I will go over the main talents that have impact on your gameplay. If you are new on Arcane Mage, I would suggest that you read through all the talents at least once, so you have an idea what they are doing. This is the build I'm using in Mythic Plus, I'm also gonna link it below in the description. Unfortunately, as mages in Season 1, we don't really have many choices. On the left talent tree, you have the option to choose between Temporal Realignment and Time Walk. I would highly recommend to always use Time Walk, because you don't want your alter time to be triggered when you go below 20%. You want to make sure that you can get as many uses out of alter time as you can, as this is one of your only defensives currently. Other than that, here you have the option to choose between Shimmer and Blink. Shimmer usually is the better option, because you can cast while blinking, so this enables you to have more output throughout the dungeon. Dragon's Breath versus Supernova, I would really recommend taking Supernova, because it has the same effect as Dragon's Breath, but you can use it on range. Last but not least, choose Spatial Manipulation. This gives your Shimmer 1 more charge, which in return means you can blink more, keep casting, keep your DPS high. Amazing talent. On the hero talent tree in Mythic Plus, we are using Spellslinger. This is the default option in Mythic Plus, it just performs better overall. In the hero talent tree, you don't really have any options of choosing. What I picked here is the default that you should pick as well if you want the maximum throughput. Last but not least, on the Arcane talent tree, you also don't really have many options to choose from. But now let's do a bit more deep dive to see what those talents actually do. Your whole gameplay as Spellslinger revolves around creating splinters that do damage to the enemies. As you can see, casting Arcane Blast or Arcane Pulse conjures an Arcane Splinter. This is a projectile that does damage to enemies. But not only does it do damage to enemies, with the other talents in your hero tree, this for example reduces the cooldown of your Arcane Orb, which means you can do impactful AoE damage with your orb, or it can grant you Arcane Salvo stacks. In the Arcane tree, the first thing you have to talent into is Arcane Missiles. Unfortunately, we don't use this spell at all, so you can completely ignore that, and if you want to make it easy, you can even unbind it from your boss. Arcane Salvo is the talent we have been already talking about, but here you can read again what it does. So it can stack up to 20 times, and for every stack the damage of your next Arcane Barrage is increased by 7% to a maximum of 140%. Arcane Pulse replaces Arcane Explosion that you might know from the past. This is, like we already talked about, just your AoE builder to build arcane charges and also to build Arcane Salvo. Here you can see why it is building Arcane Salvo. The talent Expanded Mind allows us to gain 2 charges whenever we cast Arcane Blast or Arcane Pulse. In the basics we were talking about Touch of the Magi. Here you can see this is actually also a talent, but like Combustion for Fire Mage, you need to talent into this. It's really important. This is what your gameplay revolves around. Resonance is why it is always good to have more than one target to hit as Arcane Mage. This makes your finisher, Arcane Barrage, do more damage if it hits more than one target. Intuition makes your Arcane Barrage do 25% more damage if you are at maximum stacks of Arcane Salvo. If you combine this with Polished Focus, you can see why it is always important to barrage at 20 and not before. The reason why we don't use missiles anymore is Orb Mastery. Whenever we cast an orb with clear casting, we fire 2 more orbs at the enemy. Your Apex talent you don't really have to know much about, it just increases your damage overall. 3. Stats, Trinkets and Crafted items. Your main secondary stats as Arcane Mage are Mastery and Haste. Here you can see my stats, but I want to emphasize that especially for Arcane Mage, the other stats are not bad like for many other classes. So you want to make sure that you always sim your character, and if you need help with that, I'm gonna link the Mage Discord below. They have an amazing guide on how to sim your character, and I would highly suggest that you check it out. Your main trinkets will be Valgor's Final Stare, and unfortunately I don't have that yet, Gaze. If you don't have Gaze, you can also use another passive trinket. I, for example, use Heart of the Wind right now. It's definitely not the best choice, but in my situation, this is the best that I have. Crafted items. The 3 slots with the least impact on your main stats are back, wrist and waist. So here I would recommend to you to craft 2 items with the Arcane Weave inside, and it could be either back, waist or wrist. 4. Single target and AoE rotation. Before I show you the rotations, let's talk some principles. First, as long as you are not running out of mana, you want to make sure that you barrage only on 20 salvo stacks. We already discussed in the talent section why you do that. This means that sometimes you will be hardcasting Arcane Blast or Pulse for many times in a row until you reach those 20 stacks. Second, 5 seconds before your cooldowns come up, always make sure that you start building towards the 20 salvo stacks so you can immediately go into cooldowns. Popping cooldowns always looks the same. You build up to 20 stacks of Arcane Salvo, then you pop Surge, Arcane Barrage. While the Arcane Barrage is mid-air, you press Touch of the Magi. And every time you use Barrage, which you only do at 20 stacks of Salvo, you then use Orb. That enables you to fill up your arcane charges, to get a lot of salvo stacks, and with that you basically are about to cast another barrage immediately. Let's now get into the rotation. On the bottom right you will see an ability tracker that you can use to further understand what buttons I'm pressing. Between your cooldowns, you now just want to always stack your salvo to 20 stacks, then barrage, and if you have clear casting, use an orb after. If you ever run out of mana, just make sure to not go to 20 stacks of salvo always, but barrage early. The main thing you want to look out for is your mana. You want to make sure that you can easily stack to 20 stacks of Arcane Salvo before your next cooldowns come up. 5 seconds before your cooldowns come up, make sure to start pre-stacking your Arcane Salvo to 20 so you can go immediately into your cooldowns. As you can see, your small cities with only Touch of the Magi are the same rotation than your big cities. If you are not fully stacked at 20 stacks of Salvo, don't delay your Touch of the Magi. Instead use it, keep stacking to 20 and then barrage. Now let's talk AoE. Your AoE rotation is the exact same as your single target rotation. The only difference is that you press Arcane Pulse instead of Arcane Blast. The only difference I want to note here is that while in single target you only use your orb after barrage, in AoE it is fine to also use it to get back to 20 stacks. As I already talked about in my fire guide, unfortunately Blizzard gutted our defensive toolkit in Midnight, so as a K-Mage you're left with Ice Cold, Prismatic Barrier and Alter Time. This is why it is so important that you as a mage learn all the mobs in the dungeons, all the boss mechanics, so you can pre-alter time damage incoming, because if you don't do that, you will just die.
Close. So here on Oozing Slime you just alter. You let yourself take a bit. Once you feel like you die, you just alter back.
Your Ice Cold is amazing if you get overlapped by multiple mechanics. One example is in Seed, where you can get a bleed effect while also having AoE rotting damage. Last but not least, Prismatic Barrier is incredibly strong. On top of giving you a shield that prevents you from getting one-shot, this barrier actually reduces any magic damage by 25%. With that, it is much better than any other mage barrier.
And then now you can just press barrier because there's no damage incoming, and the barrier alone is enough for you to survive the big hit as Arcane Mage. This is how easy it is to play this boss as Arcane Mage.
Of course, always important, carry some health pots. Since you are already low on defensive, make sure that you have them ready whenever you need them. Two more things I want to add. While you are below 3 arcane charges, it is actually better to cast Arcane Pulse instead of Arcane Barrage to stack up your arcane charges. This even applies in single target. The second thing is the mana management. This is something that you will get used to when you play Arcane Mage a lot. I don't think there's much I can say about this in the guide. Just make sure that you are not running out of mana before your cooldowns. If you feel like you're struggling with mana, you probably are missing some mastery, or you have to conserve mana better. You do this by not stacking to 20 stacks between your cooldowns and instead just sending your barrages early. Which race is the best for Mythic Plus? I can tell you with confidence that both Night Elf and Dwarf are really good picks. It just depends on the dungeon you are looking at. While in some dungeons Night Elf creates insane value because you can melt some boss and trash abilities, in other dungeons removing a bleed or a poison effect is just way too strong this season, so you choose what you feel best with. With this we covered everything you need to know for Mythic Plus as a K-Mage, but I want to give you one more tip. Here you can see 2 different sims. The Mage Discord helped me create them. Thanks a lot again to Porom for supporting me with this data. What you can see here is a sim that tells me what is the difference if I full on Arcane Pulse in my cooldowns versus what happens if I Arcane Blast in my cooldowns. Heated stands for the full on Arcane Pulse cooldown section, and Funnel means that you Arcane Blast. What is really interesting is that if you have a big priority target in your pack, for the speed of the key it is actually better to implement some Arcane Blasts in your cooldown. While you lose around 10% in overall damage, or in the AoE section, you gain around 10% more damage on your priority target. So sometimes it might be wise that even though it is an AoE situation, to actually use your single target rotation. Thank you guys for watching this guide. In the description I will also link my Discord. If you want to learn anything else that is Mythic Plus or Mage specific, feel free to add a comment or let me know in my Discord so I can make another video. I hope you enjoyed and I wish you a great day. See you in the next video.